All right, we're recording. We're rolling. First off, do you like my shirt? Look at this color.
Yeah, it's a great color.
And I got it at my friend's thrift store. Or well, it's not his, but he works there. It's got this nice little pocket. It's like
Yeah.
it's made in Israel. That's one of those things that I was like, that seems fun. And it just feels like some old shirt from like the 80s or 90s that sat in a closet forever and nobody used. And I was like,
It's still got a bright color.
I'll
Sometimes
take
that
that.
kind of yellow color will fade out, but
Yeah.
it's
It's like
held
a
its own.
mustardy orangey color. Um, yeah, so we want to talk about Breakwater. We want to talk about festivals. We want to talk about TLC and estuary and events and what we're all doing here, why we keep coming, why we find it valuable,
Yeah.
etc.
Yes.
Why do you keep doing this stuff? Why are you still involved? Just despite your very full life? Because you came here,
Mhm.
you got a husband, you got babies, you moved across the world, you got your dreams were fulfilled, you got everything you ever wanted. You're a
And
princess, not
more.
a queen.
Yeah.
And and but but you're still wanting to put on events, and part of that is because of your past and your history.
Yeah.
But I would think that you still get stuff out of these conversations. Do you go to an estuary
Yeah.
regularly?
Not regularly. There's one in Utrecht that I visit sporadically, and then I've also visited the one in Teal sporadically, but that one's sort of on hiatus because Diego just had a baby of his own. So he's currently on hiatus, which, yeah, fair enough. Good on him. Take
Yeah,
some time,
yeah,
uh, be a father. But yeah, for me with the two kids, it's a little too hard to take the time off, to take a train,
yeah,
walk 15 minutes. Like, I mean, it sounds so silly, but when you have two kids, all of that is very precious time. And I really enjoy being there. But yeah, I can't always do it. But still involved in sort of estuary world and I do these events and yeah, I mean, I do still get things out of it. I've said this before. I don't think I get as much out of it as I used to. Like I don't need it as much as I did 5 years ago. But I keep doing it because I remember what it was like 5 years ago when I did need it much more.
mhm,
When, it was new to me and having this place to talk about these ideas in ways that I felt was much healthier than anywhere else I was seeing. Um, that's what keeps me going, I think. Just trying to, yeah, kind of pay it forward, if you will.
mm,
Kind of give back to what I got from it. Cause yeah, I'm, I hit the jackpot. I got a very nice husband out of this. I have wonderful friends. I have 2 children. I am in a new country of having all these new experiences. And yeah, there's a lot in my life that would say, don't worry about this whole other world. Just focus on your little space and this thing that you got from it, which I do. But I think there is this thing in my heart that always says, well, if you got something from it, what about all of these other people who could have the same if we,
right,
you know, work together to keep making opportunities for these things? So that's sort of where I stay in it. And I think the event side of it is, yeah, my background. I worked in events. I feel like I'm fairly good at organizing events. And so I might as well use that skill set here. But I think we're still trying to figure out what makes sense with events and how do you grow organically and how do you make events that um, are at a decent price point that's not too expensive, that gives what people who have been doing this for 5 years or so wanna see, that also brings new people in too, because you kind of need both to make these events successful and to kind of support the communities the way you want. And so it's all of this complicated equation that you're trying to calculate in to make these events, um, valuable, I guess. I don't know if that
yeah.
makes sense.
No, it does. I think, well, so in Minnesota, where I'm at, we've there was quite a few of my local cohort here that went to Midwesterary this a couple weeks ago, and And within the first week, within a few days of getting back, a number of us got together, all of us that went, because there were 4, 5, and then 6, including myself, that went. So there was quite a few people that
Yeah.
went. I think there were other people that wanted to go, and then another guy who wanted to go came anyhow afterwards, and we just talked about our experience there and what we liked, what we didn't like, what we would change, and we've just begun. I mean, it's been a long time in the making, and PVK and John Van Donk keep giving us grief about not doing a Minnesota event. But part of it is like I feel like they're not paying attention to what I tell them all the time, because like they both were just like, start an estuary. And I'm like, we've had one for years. Like we've been doing estuary for like 3 years. I don't know what you're talking about. It's just I don't run it. And so maybe that's part of it. And then but like nobody wants me running anything, like administrative stuff. Like it's not a good idea. But we started talking about our event, and I think to your point, it's one of the things that we said, and there's been ongoing conversations about this. One of the things that I think is so cool is there's the broad philosophical concept, right? There's unity and multiplicity. There's sameness and difference. And and I think these events, that's one of the things with all the geographic regions and cultural differences and personal differences, is there's going to be their own unique flavors. Like something that we
Yeah.
start talking about is I would never want a conference as big as Chicago.
How
You know,
many how many were there?
I think it was
In the
somewhere between
hundreds.
300 to 350, something like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
And part of that is they wanted it big. They wanted to get big names. They wanted to pull in some new people. And that happened a lot because there were definitely a lot of people there who had never heard of estuary before, had never been to an estuary, who maybe were just coming for, because I mean, you have like Rod Dreher, Elizabeth Oldfield,
Yeah.
PVK, Peugeot, Vervaeke. You're going to draw in people that are maybe just interested in them. There's going to be a lot of people who just have no idea even what TLC is,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of crossover. This little corner of the internet. It's the relationship and community, the online community downstream of PVK. That's how I describe it. Paul Vanderklay. And so
Getting rid
there's
of your shorthands,
there's so
being
much
more
jargon, right? And that's part of it too, right? Communities
Yeah.
build their own jargon. It's inevitable. Like
Yeah.
they're going to, and you can't avoid that. Like go to some math club and you're gonna have no idea what they're talking about. And like,
Yeah.
is that because they're assholes? No, it's because they have their
Well,
own.
maybe, but
Yeah. So we start talking about our conference, and I have no idea. I think I I've always been a slow growth person,
Yeah.
I think that's the way to go. Organic, you said. It's the slow food movement is something you both of us have talked about that we're kind of passionate about. I think that's just slow is good in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. I want it to be intimate and not as big, I've always been a little leery of scale, and there's probably things that we'll do. Hospitality is a big piece for us. Really quality food is a big piece for us. Like we don't want to just feed people. We want to like love them with food and hospitality
Yeah.
and the quality of the food and the presentation and all that. And we might do it in the dead of winter. There might be like, holes in lakes that we jump in. There might be saunas, we might do breath work. It would be very, we were throwing around names like Icestuary, embrace the cold, embrace the north, embrace winter. And then couple that with Peter Rollins' work, it works symbolically.
Does every event have to be a pun on estuary now?
I
Is that
don't think
new?
I don't think it has to, but it's kind of it's the wordplay is kind of like a little silly inside joke
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense to people. It's part of the steep slope thing.
Yeah.
So all that to say, that's a little bit what we're thinking of our event, but then honestly, part of the organizing it all and doing that feels daunting, and I think that's where you really gotta lean into different people with different gifts, because, like, if you're counting on me to organize structurally the event and to figure out logistics and planning and legalities and all that kinda stuff, like, it's not getting off the ground, you know?
Right.
I'm not gonna do that, but can I connect people and be a hype man and ask people a lot of questions and try to use resources and do that kind of stuff? Yeah. Um, so so I don't know. I mean, does anything in there bring up anything for you or any
Yeah.
questions about Midwestuary or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I'd really be interested in your experience with it because I've obviously done I've been at our events, but I don't think I've been to another sort of estuary branded event, just because of living in Europe and having babies. And so
Right.
I have a sense of what happens at our events, and it's very precious to me. And I
Right.
really resonate with that idea of growing slow. And I think we're kind of having that question of, um, yeah, what is the next step and how do we grow organically? Like in some ways, just financially, we need to grow bigger because it's
Mhm.
not sustainable. I mean, we're breaking even, but we're going in the red in the sense that we're not paying anybody anything to do
Right.
anything. There are some
Right.
people pulling some some uh, some heavy hours doing this stuff.
Right.
And, I just as a person who has worked in events, I wanna take care of our people, like,
Mhm.
that's part of what I wanna look out for, but I don't wanna do it at the expense of the experience and the communities that we're supporting. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of questions of how do you balance those things? And, yeah, I don't have I wish I had all of the answers, like, we certainly have a lot of ideas. But, like, on the one hand, there's something interesting to me about pulling off a big event in that as an event organizer, I think that would be really fun, especially at the opportunities that it can bring, like working with different people and putting on different kind of formats. That's really exciting to me. But that is not necessarily what I think is the most helpful and beneficial for the community building
Mhm.
aspect, which is these smaller events. And that's sort of
Yeah.
where we're trying to build in a platform where we can kind of potentially do both, where the festival can grow as we need it to, potentially become
Mhm.
this bigger European event that all of the estuaries come together with to have sort of some big, you know, celebration or collaboration or something, and then having these exchange events that are these smaller ones. And so, as we've been kind of trying to figure out what makes sense, we were hoping to do a festival in November, but it's not looking like we have enough support to do that right now. So we're postponing that into the summer, and we're going to focus on three exchange events: one in England, one in um, the Netherlands, and one in Germany. And we're still
Okay.
kind of trying to figure out all of the details with that and try to get enough volunteer support to pull those off. And I think we will. But it still leaves us at the same place that we were before we did this, where it's sort of like we'll pull it off, but we'll probably break even, and
Mm.
the communities will be happy about it. And that's a great thing. That's a win for us, but it still leaves us in that place of, well, how do we make this sustainable? Because we're not at this point.
Yeah, so from my limited I have decent knowledge of all the events because, I went to there was a first kinda Chicago event that I don't know much about. I could ask Sam and some of those people about it, but, so that I just think that doesn't even count, and then was Chino before Thunder Bay? Which was first? Do you remember? I think
From what I know, I think we were first, and then it was Thunder Bay, and
Oh,
then it was Chino.
okay, alright.
That's how I have been told. I can't remember, if I'm honest. I could go back and look at my calendars, but John
Okay,
says we were the first. Breakwater was the first one. But I think
okay.
I think, Thunder Bay may have announced before we did, and then it got
Oh.
postponed because of COVID longer than.
Oh, yeah, I vaguely remember that. And you're talking about your event, was that the one at the Van Osses?
No, no, this was the
That
one in
was
Germany.
that was a different thing, that's
Uh,
the German one, okay.
yeah.
Um,
We had 2 in Germany, and then we had this last one in the Netherlands, which was at the Van Osses, so that was our
oh,
3rd one.
alright. I have not been tracking your guys' stuff that much.
It's okay. We're across the pond. We're out of sight,
Yeah,
out of mind.
yeah. It's like, there's so much I can't even keep up with, like, my small core group of TLC friends. There's too much stuff going on. So, but you're in that. We just don't talk. You're just busy with your own life that way. I'm gonna come visit you someday though.
Yeah.
So I went to Thunder Bay, and I don't. So Catherine and Eamon Wilson put that on, and I mean, they were the main ones, I think. And I don't know anything about the finances, but I would guess it's pretty similar. So I know Chino, that was Van Donk's big one that he primarily was doing. He was the main guy there. And then Nate and Sarah at Heil at Northwestuary. Sarah Ann, Sarah Ann, I think is her name. And then this one at Midwestuary. And I think so. I know Nate was in the red, but part of that is because he did huge food stuff that he and like did it at his house and paid for it all himself. And so I think just the conference itself, if you exclude all the cooking and extra stuff he did at the house, I think they actually were a little bit in the black, but
Yeah.
I think they ended up losing money in the long run. I know working up to the conference, I don't know how it ended up with Sam and Chad and Moises and all those guys, and Dan. I think it was going to be borderline, but I'm almost sure they paid for everything and ended up in the red a little bit. I don't know. I'd have to ask Sam because I think there was a little bit of a final big push. And I think, but the thing is with all of this, right, is to your point, all the people that are doing all the work, they're not getting paid. And they're putting in hours and hours and weeks probably of over months. I mean, because like Sam said, they planned 13 months for this conference.
Yep.
And, like they did I don't know if it's a 503c or whatever, a nonprofit to deal with all the money. So all of it's, on the up and up.
Yep.
All that stuff takes a lot of work, and then logistics, and then speaker fees, and getting speakers in and doing all that. That's part of why I want to, like, somewhat. I don't know if this is selfishly or it's just really leaning into my personalism and scale, but like for Minnesota, I'm just like I don't. To me, it's almost the big and the scale is a little bit more, to throw in another TLC jargon term. It's a little bit more like Christian YouTube versus TLC. Like TLC, it doesn't take much to do TLC. It's like a screen, we're friends, we talk, it's a little bit of time, and we just boom, and we get into it. There's like no prep, there's no oversight, there's no scripts, there's no speakers, there's no money. But like if you want to scale everything and get big speakers and get attention and get people in, what it reminds me of is like the kind of the corporatization of Big Eva. It's just like we want to make this scale. How do we do more? How do we for the stockholders, how do we get bigger dividends every year and like just up, that kind of spirit. And I guess it's fine. Like I don't want to say universally that's a bad thing and people shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And how do you make this is my struggle in the world. How do you make money at things without selling your soul? Like, I've been thinking of this constantly because I struggle with that stuff. And so like, how do you do an event and make money without, I mean, probably it's just going to be at the beginnings, it's going to be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears without making a lot of money. But go ahead.
I mean, the way we think about it is like we want to create an experience that's valuable, like point blank, whether we're making money or not. And so for the first 3 years for us, it was sort of like, let's just get really good at what we do, really understand what we want to create in events, and from there figure out what makes sense from a scaling perspective.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I probably have less of a pessimistic view about making money and selling my soul. I mean, I certainly see the pitfalls. Like I don't want to say that I don't see that pitfall there, but I do think that there is a way that you can do that without selling your soul. At least I hope, or I guess I wouldn't do this.
Right. No,
But
right.
but, like, the thing is, yeah, I'm not really doing this for the money. I wouldn't be in this game if I was doing it for the money, right? And there's so many other currencies besides just, like, the paper dollar that you're
Yeah.
trading in. And so as much as we could say we're probably, breaking even with the events, like the value that we're seeing, like the return we're getting in like relational currency,
Yes.
these other currencies that we're having are just off the charts. And
Yeah.
so it's not, you can't project it on a like some PowerPoint presentation that shows like growth. Like it's hard to kind of map it out and show that. It's something you have to
Right.
experience, but we see it and we feel it, and that's why we keep investing in it. But on there's something about me. I'm very interested in sustainability and trying to make things not overextend, whether that's sort of like farming or businesses, whatever. And so that question of sustainability here is what I'm really interested in TLC.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not about the hockey stick growth of like let's skyrocket, but it's sort of like how do you get to the place where you can grow slowly and allow this to become less of a burden for the small group of people who've been sacrificing for the last 5 years to really try to make this um I don't know, more popular, I suppose, but that doesn't even feel right. But like, I guess have other people see the value that we see in it. Um,
What I
and
was
it's
just thinking, I just had this weird idea because I've always said like I never want to make money off my YouTube channel. I can't even do it yet. But if it got big enough or you could do membership stuff or whatever, I would what could be an interesting idea is like people that are in the flotilla or TLC or anything adjacent to this, they could have just they could opt into having kind of like a monthly tithe. If they're making money on this, we want to put it in this communal pot, and then we could have someone who like trustworthy, a CFO or whatever, who manages that. I think there are some people in the TLC that are pretty handy with money. I mean, I know of a few who I think would be very trustworthy in this regard because I know they've invested a lot of money in TLC with no financial return. Um, and like that kind of stuff could just like that could just be used communally. Like I don't know. I'm a big fan of voluntary communism, you know.
voluntary comment. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, yeah, that's an interesting. We've been talking about what is Breakwater, what are we doing? And I don't necessarily think at this point we want to be a funding body, but we've talked about that sense of how do we make Breakwater more of a business minded operation so that communities can stay community level and we can deal with sort of the event stuff where it's like we can deal with contracts, we can deal with networking, we can deal with helping give
mhm,
support to communities that want to do events so that people like you can have an event that
yeah,
fits what you want but don't have to go through like the rigmarole of what it is to do that, and then having that space to kind of let each space be what it needs to be. Because if communities are all individually having to be event organizers, it's just not very efficient.
right,
And it's not putting, you know, the right people in the right places. It's like it makes it more difficult to kind of figure out how do we work together to help grow this thing in a really natural, sustainable way.
right,
But yeah, that idea of like we've talked about like starting a scholarship fund of like saying, okay, well, could we find a way to designate a certain amount that comes into us from donations or whatever into some sort of scholarship fund that could help, get people to go to our events, but also to other events like Midwestuary, like
mhm,
South Estuary, those sorts of things, because that's a big thing we have a problem with here is um, people can't even pay what it costs to run these events, or at least they don't feel like they can. And so that's sort of yeah, that's a difficult question to answer.
Do you think that's just do you think that's just because stuff is more expensive over there?
I don't know. I think it's probably like a multi-factor thing. I think there's a lot less disposable income. I think, yeah, like average salaries are much lower.
Hmm.
I do think, yeah, depending on where you are, like the Netherlands, they're very budget minded. So
Hmm.
if it feels expensive, well, there's going to be a hesitancy there, right? And it's sort of, I ask myself that question of like, is what we're doing too expensive? Well, on the one hand, I can't say, well, no, it should probably cost more, whether we're um, just with the basic cost, right? Like of what it's going to cost. Like we should charge more for what we're doing, but we try to keep it as low as possible. But that doesn't really answer the question of like, are we bringing enough value to charge those things? And it's hard because I'm biased, right? I think that we are trying to create something valuable, and I see the
Yeah.
fruits of it. But I'm always self reflective, maybe self critical to a point to go, well, just because I think it is doesn't mean that's so. But where I do get some sort of encouragement is I've seen people who have come to every single one of our festivals, paying the full cost of what it is, being like, I'm always hesitant to come because it's a lot of money, but every time I come, I leave thinking this was so worth it. And so we go,
Right.
okay, well, that's that, like, let's keep trying to make that a thing. But there is, I think there is certainly outreach and branding stuff that um, makes it hard for us to kind of uh, yeah, convey, I think, the value that is there. I don't think we figured out that question as a whole in the estuary sense of
Right.
like what is really valuable about these events. Like if you know, but you got to find a way to express that
I think this
outside of.
is I think this is almost a way. I mean, I tell me what you think of this, because
Mm,
we've been talking about this somewhat in the corner, but you could almost, I don't want to say like switch to this as like a sales pitch or a marketing thing, but I really do think this is true. This is part of the difference between, again, Christian YouTube and the corporate thing and what TLC is I really do believe the core of the TLC, for people that understand TLC, and I don't think you really understand it without initiation, because initiation is how you understand anything.
sure.
But and PBK has started saying this a lot, and tip your hat to Neil Daedalus, one of the organizers of the Midwestuary, but like, it's making friends. And I've got to the point where I'm I don't know if I'm completely comfortable, but I'm comfortable enough to say it, that it's probably like most of my best friends I've met online. I mean, and it's just the people I talk to every day that I would probably trust the most, who I think are some of the wisest, good, generous people that I know of, people who really like, um, I was gonna say have like a pretty radical faith, but like are just good people, because there's people within that don't even self-identify as believers.
Right.
Um, I've met a lot of people that I genuinely love, and this came up a lot at Midwestuary. Like, Elizabeth Oldfield made this really sweet toast at a dinner before the event, and the thing that she toasted to was, I don't know. Every time I like talk to you, I start crying. It's ridiculous. I'm kind of a crier, but
Well, me too. So you're in good
um,
company.
but she said, well, and that's why Jess is one of my best friends in the corner too, because he's one of the only sob stories that cries more than me. But she toasted to one of the things that she was most moved by, and I think even after the event, and I think Rod Dreher saw this and has talked about it, is like, she said she's coming to this event. Like, we went to this Cubs game, and I was sitting next to her chatting with her for a little bit. Me and Neil were, and Neil and I were like so amped because McMo was coming and he just hadn't shown up yet. And we were so excited. Like, we're sitting there talking to her, and I'm excited to talk to her too, but we're just like getting up, looking, waiting for him to come, like checking our phones. And then he showed up, and we were just like, falling over chairs to like go and get at him, because like, I love that dude. Like, he's phenomenal. And you know, and there's so many people like Jess and Chad. Like I talked to Chad this morning on the phone. Like there's certain things in my life where like I will automatically call Chad before anyone else because I know he'll understand more than anybody else I have in my life. And it's just like we talk about the meaning crisis, which a lot of people have said is the intimacy crisis, is the friendship crisis. What is more valuable than friends? And the loneliness epidemic. Like it's like I just wish I could communicate to people like this is like you'd give everything you owned. And I'm not saying it's like an automatic thing, like it's going to happen to you. Join, you know, give us money, come to an event. You know, you'll meet your best friend, but you might. And there's something about these people. There's something that's weird that's happened through this technological medium and the internet and the algorithm and whatever this is that like really is. I will call it magical because magic I don't even think is a bad word anymore. It's a sacred divine magic where like look at you. You met your husband and the father of your children through this. Like that's just I'm just going to call that good, you know?
I think it's good.
And so,
You
like,
know,
yes, are there dangers? This comes up all the time. People are like, what are the dangers of TLC? Like, is it a cult? Could people spend too much time online? Yes. But who do you see in TLC who's just encouraging people to exclusively be online and on screens and never go live their life or go to church or find a community or find a spouse? No one's saying that.
yeah. No,
So,
it's
like,
like it's a I guess it's a fair thing to point out, but in practice and reality, yeah,
it's just a
I
bunch of fear-mongering people. Like, go see a therapist. Like, you're afraid. Go see a therapist. Like, people that just criticize all the time and can only come up with negative stuff, go see a therapist, unless it's a bad therapist. And then read Abigail Schreier's Bad Therapy book. Like, I mean, go do something besides criticizing constantly. Clean your room. Sorry, I get fired up. But, like,
no,
friendship, that is something that matters. This isn't just content. Come and see a speaker, have a mountaintop, you know, summer camp moment. I don't think that's what it is. It's like meet a bunch of people that you will have ongoing conversation and dialogos with, not only about ideas, that's part of it, but about all
yeah,
kinds of things. Like how much have we talked about relationships and families, you and me, in our,
huge, yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think even going through this, I talk far less about ideas than I used to. Like going through the whole rigmarole of the TLC. And I feel like in the estuary, like in the estuary, I don't know what you would call it, the pathway or whatever. I'm kind of on the other side, right?
Mm,
Um, yeah, it's not that I don't still have contact with it, but I'm not so involved as I used to be. It's sort of whatever the path is that you go and to enter, that's sort of I've ended up where people want to end up, right?
mhm,
Um, and yeah, I mean, I still talk about ideas sometimes, but I've lost that like feverish need to know and
mhm,
like am falling much more in the path of learning how to be.
mhm,
And that's what I think is sort of interesting about these events. We certainly bring people to talk about ideas or whatever, bring something to the table, but there's so many ways that we layer in different types of participation that it opens people to being less caught up in the ideas and understanding the persons and
mhm.
living in the moment and being in that space. And how do you take this thing and move it in your own life to get you to a place where you feel like your life's a little more meaningful, like every day.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean, as much as I am very appreciative of the online space and like what it's done, I've always been somewhat of a critic, I guess you could say, but sort of a supporter of grounding it in the in person because I just don't think it's long term sustainable if we keep it online. I think if we keep it online and just continue doing all of this online, it's just going to end up like any other internet forum.
yeah,
There's something about like like bringing that to life and in real space
yeah,
that does something. And
yeah,
I think I know particularly because of how I met my husband. Like we dated for 8 months without ever meeting each other in person because we
mhm,
couldn't. Like there was COVID
mhm,
restrictions that stopped us from doing that. And then all of a sudden being able to, you know, meet each other in person, and then, move my life over here to live in the same city, and then, you know, move like continue moving down that line to moving in the same home and then raising children and all of those things. We could never have had that if we just kept it online. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, it's sort of different in that, it's like a relational thing that, a marriage and all of those things, but it's the same way it scales in different ways
Yes.
in different relationships.
Yeah. That's like the purest form of it, but friendship is like a lesser form of that. It's still like ideally to some degree physical and doing things together. Like that's the difference between like the face to face male to woman and the side to side, friendship of man to man or whatever. What I think Lewis or Tolkien talked about that. But like even building things, doing things together, creating things, like
Yeah.
the actual embodiment, physicality is an important thing. It's an important part of that. But I think this space encourages that. But there is it's like the technology though allowed people to connect in a way and bridges of meaning, bridges where we could connect in ways that we never could before, because it
Right.
really is. It's kind of like the internet has those magic things. I remember when I was a kid and I was like, wouldn't it be crazy when we had just the old school PC and like the floppy disks and stuff? I may be older than you, but
Yeah, I remember floppy disks. It
okay.
was right
And
at the end of my childhood.
yeah, but like the actual floppy ones, not
Yeah.
like the hard SanDisk. And I'd play like King's Quest on the computer and the worm game, whatever that was. Um, but they, but I would like, wouldn't it be cool someday if there was like a computer and you could just type in any question you have and it would just like tell you the answer? And like I remember imagining that stuff, or like, what if you could say like, what if you could find a group of people that were just like super interested in the things that you were interested in. And like, of course, there can be a kind of narcissism and like inbredness to that. But that's the thing with the TLC. The more you'll find with people, this is like the Karen Wong question of like, what have you studied so deeply you realize there's no bottom?
Yeah.
People. Like you can
Yeah.
find a person who's interested in talking about ideas and like get to know them for a while. You'll find out like there's a lot of difference, maybe infinite difference,
Yeah.
even in someone who's similar. So I think the personal part of it is the most. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to say to you is there were a bunch of young guys in the corner, these Zoomers or whatever that C-backs. Christian Baxter had a conversation with recently after Midwestuary. It's
Mm.
worth a listen. Paul treated it once. You're busy with children to watch all these things, but one of the things that multiple guys said in there is that one of the things that makes estuary work a lot better is, because there's all the different ways you can talk about intellectual ideas, you can talk about personal ideas, contextual or estuarily ideas, these different formats, it's part of the protocol. But they said one of the things that makes estuary work really well and not just like a bunch of ideas and will make it kind of almost makes the thing fall into its place is when it gets personal, when somebody shares personal ideas and personal stories and personal issues in their life.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been the core of the TLC. It's what makes us we're not just making content. We're not just getting information. We're not just sharing. It's not just about ideas, and I think that's really ultimately why it is so valuable and hopefully why it has a kind of longevity, because I think that's what people ultimately want is to be seen and loved, not to just be like listened to their personal TED talk, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, it's funny. My last time I visited my mom, she had the Matthew McConaughey audiobook in her
Mm.
car, and and I was like using her car, so I was, listening to it. And he talked about how when you get more personal, it somehow becomes more universal.
I love him. Yeah, I didn't hear that in the book, but I heard him in an interview talk about that, and I was like, it's so good.
Yeah, and I think that it's true. And from what I've experienced with the estuary stuff, I've always enjoyed when it goes to the personal, because when you get to the personal, you can somehow link all of these weird esoteric ideas into that and like
Yes.
dive into it. But it's not always the other way around. Sort of like, okay, you want to talk about the Trinity. Um, like you can do that and it's a deep well, but all of a sudden, if you can bridge that into the personal, at least to me, it becomes far more interesting. It becomes far more useful and helpful universally.
It was far
And
more real, far more
yeah,
incarnate, maybe.
yeah. Maybe so. Maybe that's it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think there is something to that personal level. And that's what I think these events do. It personalizes it because you're no longer avatars on a screen. You're no longer the thing you can press the Xbox and just get rid of it. It's like it's there. It's
yeah,
living. And it comes with all the good and all the bad and all of the ways that you navigate those things. And it's a challenge. And I find it a fascinating challenge. Um,
right.
I think I'm just so moved by the communities that have made like long-term recurring meetings and the value they've gotten from that. And I always bring them up, but the German estuary in Mannheim, I think, is sort of the blueprint of what sort of that in-person community growth
Mm,
can be like, and they've done it so well. And we've been able to partner with them a couple times with events to do stuff, and we're hoping to do that again with them here in November. But there's something to what is coming out of these groups that I'm just in awe with. And
right.
again, I don't even feel like I need it now, but to see how it's helped others who do need it and
Mhm.
seeing other people in my life who, maybe do feel like they need that space. What keeps me going and keeps me moving in these things because it's sort of like there's there's a lot more. I'm in it more than just my personal gain, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. That's, he was at the guy isn't the guy who is over there in Germany and does a lot of
Yeah,
that stuff? He was at Midwest, right? Dave
they
Dave?
yeah.
Yeah. And because he just had a conversation. I did not piece that together. I was, like, putting together badges with him, and it was one of those times where I was just there's so much going on at the co that's one of the things about a big conference, there's so much going on, so many people, is
Yeah,
that even this is probably where I've realized I'm more of an introvert, even though I'm, like, high energy and excitable. Very passionate. I am a little bit more introverted because 'cause I'm just like, I can't manage this
this
intensity of
level of
emotion,
people.
just like 20 hours a day for like 4 days in a row. So I think I was sitting next to him and talking, and he was talking about Germany and how he's from Germany and all that stuff. But until because he had a post conversation, was that with you? No, who's that with? Was it you? Or was it Christian Baxter? He had a conversation with somebody about Midwestray afterwards.
Oh, I don't know.
You guys don't talk every day and share this?
He's
It
on
ha
vacation right now, so
oh, it probably has to be Seabax because he's like
I would imagine.
the corner journalist who's interviewing everyone. Anyhow, but, like, even that, like, it's a so I didn't realize it was him, so we're just putting in those badges. I probably would've talked to him about a lot more stuff had I known that. See? I wasn't interested enough in the moment, in the person.
To
But
focus on badges.
I know. But I think that's the thing with slow growth and humans and, like, actually nurturing and fostering humans, human making at every level, whether it's children or a relationship, which then procreates human beings or whatever. Human growth is slow, it's like a tree. That's why they use that metaphor. And it's the same for we are still becoming human, becoming fully human as
Yeah,
adults. Like, we're not, if I was, at least in the Father John Bear kind of sense, like if I was truly human, or like doesn't Nathan Jacobs talks about that too, becoming truly human, I would be a saint and I'm not yet. So I'm like figuring that out. And it's a slow, arduous, often painful process,
yeah,
and if you're like, that's all these fruits of the spirit, patience, long suffering, things that we talk about. Well, like, you don't get those things with people if you don't spend a lot of time with them.
yeah,
You don't have to learn how to be patient with people if you're not around them a lot, you
yeah,
know? I've even found that in the corner. There are people even through this medium, if I've if I get in, like, an off recorded group with them, we're having enough conversations in there, there's enough text throughout the day, I have enough conversation with them, I get to know them well enough, I start to get annoyed. by certain things, And like but that's good. That's a chance for growth, right? Then I have
Yeah,
to deal with that.
yeah. Well, that's what you learn having children, right? Especially if you're with them every day raising them like I am. It's sort of
Yeah,
like there's these Paul always says, marriage and children show you how selfish you really are. And that's true. I'm not going to deny that. But on the other hand, it's sort of like it gives you more opportunity to be selfless than anything else.
for sure. If you're gonna do
And
it right.
if you, yeah, like, and you're going to fail. You fail every day. But like if you start flipping that on its head, it all of a sudden becomes more of a joy in the struggle of those things. And it
Yeah,
starts to like change you and make you better. And that's where I think yeah, some of this is sort of not a way to come to the answers of capital T truth, which I
mhm.
feel like a lot of online dialogue, that's sort of the aim of like, we're gonna find the truth and we're gonna stand by it and we're gonna debate over it and blah blah blah
Colonizing
blah.
people to that, yeah.
Yeah. But like I think for me it's sort of this is more like a training ground of how do you have these conversations well.
Yeah,
Especially when you're faced with someone who thinks very differently than you, because that's kind of where
yeah,
you had the opportunity to be your worst. And,
totally.
yeah, Valerie Flynn, she mentioned this to me in a conversation a while ago, but she talked about it being like, a practice in intellectual hospitality,
Mhm,
and I think that is very true, and
absolutely.
I think if you see it that way, all of a sudden yeah, the games and the concerns and the things that people bring to the table about what this is and why it's bad start to shift and change because it's not accepting that everybody who's coming in and getting a platform or a space to talk is has the truth, but it's giving them that space and learning how um, that shapes you in the way that you handle it and what your convictions are,
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
there's something about understanding that the common denominator is our humanity. Like we're all human beings trying to figure it out the best we can, trying to do good and hold true things and hopefully find some beauty out there. And um, I don't know,
yeah,
there's something very intriguing and important in that I can't always express in words. Like I don't know how to say why it's important, but I've experienced it, and there's an intuition with it, and, I don't know, it just keeps me moving towards it.
Also, this is a pitch for the people to give money to stuff like this because this is what's coming. This is the vanguard. Like, this is what I truly believe this is the kind of thing which, believe it or not, to some degree is becoming popular. Like, you even look at someone like Alex O'Connor, he talks about this stuff all the time. He wants to genuinely have conversations with people that he disagrees in a way where he's trying to understand them and not just win in a debate. He talks about how like there's a place for debate, but he says I'm having less and less interest all the time in debating people.
Yeah,
And I think TLC is one of the absolute best spaces for this where like Bethel McGrew says, you're not just like or combined with Grim Grizz, where you can break the fourth wall. You don't just have to watch two people in like
yeah,
a debate thing go back and forth, even if they're doing it well and trying to understand, which, like I said, I think it's on the up and up. Like I think that's coming. I think people are craving that
yeah,
to see people have genuine conversation, but you can actually do it
yeah.
in the
Well, and
TLC.
yeah, I mean, and it doesn't come without its difficulties, right? Because it
No,
like, we've faltered all the time. We falter all the time, but there's that place where you can come again and try again at
yeah,
as best as you can, and there's generally a spirit for that of like redemption in that. And it was interesting. We have a contract with Joseph Foley for our festival, and we're still trying to figure out with him what we're going to do to adjust his festival. Maybe he'll come in the summer. We're looking to potentially have him in November as well. But yeah, just his interest. He's like a friend of Alex O'Connor's, and his
okay,
interest when we were having conversations about like theme and stuff of seeing these communities and these conversations grounded in local communities without the sort of like big spotlight. Like he
Mhm.
just kind of lit up with that. And so that was really exciting for me to see, okay, there's this guy who's outside of it, who's found a lot of success in this space, who's having this interest in this random thing that we're doing in this like weird ether space
Yeah.
that and so it's sort of like, yeah, let's that excitement gets me excited because
Yeah.
I sometimes feel crazy. Yeah, I mean, just point blank. But like sometimes feel crazy in my belief in some of this of like I just see something so magical, as you say, about what's happening and just so raw and beautiful. And I can't help it. But then it's just sort of like, am I nuts? Like, am I just delusional in the beauty of this thing? Um, and I mean, I wouldn't keep doing it if the answer was a yes. But yeah, having those little glimpses of people outside of it that see the
Mhm.
beauty of it or kind of the interest of what it could be. Um, that's really exciting to me. And I think events are these ways to kind of introduce people to this in a way that is maybe easier than saying, "Here, watch 15 hours of John Vervaeke or Jonathan Peugeot." Like, it's the
Yeah.
wrong. To me, it's the wrong way about it. And so,
Yeah.
how do we create events that protect the thing that we have, but also extend out and invite people into? That's really tricky.
Right. There are, yeah, because that's kind of the joke from the early days, the old rando days. Like Sarah Hardy and I used to joke about that in some group chat where we would just be like, yeah, you send like the 3-hour lecture to your family. You do that forever, where you're just like, check this out. This is so amazing. Check it out. They do not. So then what you start doing is you start time stamping stuff or clipping stuff, or just be like, just listen to these 2 minutes. Please which they do not. Like other people just don't, for whatever reason, they just don't care. And you've learned to accept that, and that's okay. Like no one in my local community watches any of my content. Like they don't watch any of my videos. Like I maybe have one local buddy who's in my estuary group who will watch some of my stuff occasionally. But I don't think basically anyone does, and that's fine. That's great. But like there's something, because they either don't need it or they're getting something like, plus my content's weird, but like, or they're getting it some other way where they're being able to talk to people about stuff. And that's great. But like this is hard for even my wife to understand. I don't know what it is. Like I don't know. Like if like TLC went away, I don't know how that would really happen. Or like if all my friends that I regularly talk to, like if somehow I wasn't able to talk to them anymore, like I think I would learn to be okay, and I would learn to deal with it. But like I would be, it would feel like part of my heart was cut out. Like, and part of that is the friendship piece, but also like it's just I'm the kind of person where I don't know, I guess it's high in openness, like that big five temperament thing, thinking about
Mhm,
ideas. Like if I'm not able to, because that's where my mind is all the time. And I'm an external processor and I like to talk to people about it and learn from the other, like what we were talking about. Like I don't want to just be constantly reinforced what I think. I want to learn from people who think differently than me.
mhm.
Um, like if all of that was just taken away from me, like it would feel, I don't know, it would suck. Like it would
Yeah.
really hurt. Um, and I know there's got to be other people like that too. So for me, it is, and I've kind of always said this. I mean, part of it is I have pretty deep Christian convictions. For me, it's like I've always thought about it in terms of discipleship. Like in a way, this is like kind of my ministry, but not in a weird, creepy, colonizing way. Because it's just like I don't want to give you anything that you don't want.
Mhm,
I have no desire to give people gifts they don't want because it doesn't work anyhow.
mhm.
But I think the kind of thing that we're talking about is valuable. And I think a lot of people really would love it if they understood what it was. But like that's how rare this kind of conversation is. Like most conversations are ideological. Most people who talk to somebody who disagrees with them, they're not really talking to learn from that person.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because on one hand, I think you're totally right. It is rare. I think particularly if you're looking at other like the other kind of things on the content spectrum that are adjacent to whatever we're doing. But in my life, it doesn't feel that way. Like in my lived life, where you say if TLC closed tomorrow and was just gone, there would certainly be a sadness. I don't want to see it go. But I also think if I'm able to keep everything that I've learned from that, I've been able to cultivate those kinds of conversations in my life in all of these different ways. And I don't know if that's just my personality because, you know, I was saying I was sort of having these TLC conversations in bars with comedians before TLC was a thing, but was having a really hard time finding bridging that reality
Yeah. Yeah.
with the religious spaces that I was in.
Right.
But you know, now me and my husband talk about it all the time. It's like we take our estuary spirit wherever we go with us, whether it's the football club or you
Yeah.
know the community center or the church coffee hour. You know, there was this spirit that we were affected by, that we learned from, and we try and take that with us where we go. And yeah, I think that's another reason why I just don't feel like estuary is as dire to me as it was 5 years ago. Is like I'm having these conversations with people I go to church with and the random person I meet on the train and you know, my
Hmm.
husband, thankfully, like that I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, you married a TLCer, so
Yeah.
I'm good for you. Um, they yeah, I mean, I get that. I guess I am doing that too, but then what I was thinking is it's like this is gonna sound like whatever, arrogant or whatever, but it's kinda like there is some degree in which TLC is a dojo. So, like, being
Yeah,
able to have these conversations, it's like we've all been practicing jujitsu with each other, like, intensely daily
yeah,
for, like, 7 years. And
yeah.
so, like, right now, like, whatever, say I'm a black belt at being able to have conversations with somebody who disagrees with you somewhat well. Yeah, I could go roll with, like, some white belts,
The green
and
belts or whatever.
that would be, like, okay, but, like, it's not really fun.
Well,
The only way it would be fun, at least intellectually, I mean intellectually, is if you can make
intellectually,
it
okay.
personal,
Yes. That was
then
gonna be my counter, yeah.
yes. The personal is always important. If you can make it personal, it's always, like, the highest level, I guess. Everyone's a black belt in the personal, if we can really get there. Um, but that's the problem too, is some people just are very not used to getting there and going there, you know, and
Mhm.
that's an art all in itself, is to get people to actually be honest and personal and share what's really going on in their life,
Yeah,
particularly in the Midwest.
I think it's very hard to find people naturally inclined to the conversation about the intellectual that allows the personal to infuse it. I would say that is very
That
true.
too, yeah.
And so that in that space, I could see where that would be very difficult because, yeah, I think I don't know what it is, but there's something about the sense of like, well, I want to think logically, so I have to separate my emotion and my personality and everything. I have to be unbiased and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay,
Those
well,
delusions of modernity, you know, facts and feelings and whatever. Yeah.
I won't. I'll hold off my Ben Shapiro impression, but
Mhm.
um, but there's something, um, yeah, there's something kind of I don't know ridiculous about it. It's like who What like, what kind of arrogance do you have to think that you can get rid of your bias? Like, in what
Yeah,
world? Like, it is you. Now, obviously, there are levels in which you can let that cloud your judgment, but
yeah,
is
yeah,
it
yeah.
wrong fully to do that? And that's where I think in the TLC or, you know, estuary, whatever you wanna call it, that has been this project that we're working on of, like, fully infusing the personal into the intellectual and finding a way to allow that to stop us from othering the other person and
Yeah,
making them
absolutely.
less than in our eyes because they don't hold this theology, that worldview, blah, 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 whatever you want to, whatever
Right.
criteria you want to put in to make someone lesser than.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the real skill. Like, that's what Rod Hare, one of my friends from TLC, who I got to meet in the flesh at Midwestray, which was great. I would love to spend more time with him, but that's one of his little aphorisms, is being what the situation calls for.
Mm,
Which I always say, since he's not a self-identifying Christian, which I always say is like being all things to all men. that for the sake of Christ, I may win some. I like to bring in a little St. Paul, I'm like, yo,
Pull
it's
that
like
out of your
St.
back
Paul.
pocket.
Yeah. Which is like a funny little back and forth that we have but so I what have we figured out?
Nothing.
The value, I think we have the value is in the personal and the relational and really getting to know and meet people, because I really do think that's the answer to the meaning crisis. I think
Yeah.
what could flow out of this space and these events is friendships and people who then maybe go and, let's say, do something like build spaces where that can happen better in their local communities. Maybe that's something that can happen, or start their own businesses that will foster that kind of thing, hospitality where they live. And so, I mean, if you really care about things like, let's say, human flourishing, or the good of all mankind, or these things, like, I can't really think of much that's more important than skills that foster friendship and talking to people across all ideological and cultural and identity lines, for the sake of friendship and relationship, and for the propagation of that. Like, that's very valuable.
Yeah. I mean, we're on the same wavelength there, Luke. I think there's a lot that we're on the same wavelength there, but
I'm trying to
I think,
pitch it for just
yeah.
like, just send the money, Scrooge. Just give the dollar bills.
Gosh. Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm very uncomfortable promoting anything. I know I do it a lot in the TLC. I feel like every time now I pop up somewhere, it's because I have to promote something. And it's mostly just because I'm very busy and I have these projects, and so I have to be strategic on when I go. Although I jump into your live streams quite often without any with any agenda. But
Appreciate it.
yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, I think
fundraising is terrible. My wife and I always say that. Like, anything that comes up for school, you have to go fundraise, and we're just like, no. Or like, because I've done a few mission trips in your life, and you have to go fundraise, and it just feels skeezy.
yeah, I mean, if it's for anybody else, like I'm a great salesman. Like if I can benefit you, yeah, I'm the best. But if there's any chance that it values myself, it feels very uncomfortable to me because
Right. Well, this is
it's
why it's
not.
easier for me to ask for money for you, because I'm just like, just give it. Listen, do you like love? Do you like friendship? Do you like hospitality? Do you want people to talk across ideological lines? Do you hate American politics and everyone hating each other all the time? Give money to Cassidy. Just give it to the Breakwater Festival.
Yeah, well, I can give a little background because what you talk about of like building communities, that's what Breakwater is all about. We're really about supporting the in-person local part and sort of bridging that online and in-person estuary space. So we've been at it for 3 years and we want to keep going. And so we've got 3 events in November that we're planning right now. We're still working on details because it's a bit of a pivot strategy, but any money that we get in there is going to help us figure out how to fund those things and make it as cost effective for the communities, or yeah, so it's not prohibitive for anybody who wants to come. And then everything else goes into future events and figuring out how to incorporate correctly and make sure everything is above board. And yeah, we just want to help more estuaries, and so any money that you have to help us, we appreciate. So, and again, we're all volunteers, teams. Nobody's taking a freaking penny.
Yeah.
We're it's a labor of love, and I'm just yeah, I'm very honored with the team that we have and the energy that they put in, but I've also been very humbled by the generosity of people in estuary to help support us. And so whatever it is that you can give, like whether it's just sharing or a dollar, whatever, we just want to do the best with the money that we have. So
Yeah,
we
that's
don't
like,
take that lightly.
what are aren't there websites that show you how much money goes to like administration versus like the actual thing that these charities say they support or whatever. I think I've
Yeah.
seen websites like that where it's like
I'm sure there are.
sometimes it's like 5% of the money actually goes to the charity that they're like talking about, and like 95% of it is just admin. So it's just like a terrible thing. What Cassie's saying is 100% goes to what you're trying to support. They're not
It,
taking a dime.
it's all goes to the events, and eventually we will fundraise for salaries and stuff if we grow big enough, because
Right.
yeah, our team deserves to have their efforts paid, and it gives them the ability to do more. But at this point, we're dedicated to putting it to the events. It all goes back in.
Right.
And so yeah,
And then there's
that's
wisdom to that, not reinventing the wheel. Like if somebody knows, like I would say that, like if somebody knows how to do an event and is an event planner and they have a lot of experience in it and they've done 10 events and they could help you with yours. I don't know. I've just learned that in my own life with anything. Like there's a reason there are professionals in all sorts of fields and that they get paid for what they do because they're good at it. And it will take them so much less time because they have all this embodied neural network, Michael Polanyi knowledge. They have embodied knowledge that they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. That's the little
yeah.
aphorism for it.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, our hope is that we can build something that becomes a sort of network organization so that we can make it easier, not only for people to establish in-person estuaries in the local communities, but also doing these events. Because like you said, they're not easy. They're very cost heavy, and you can very easily lose money on them. And so having a way to kind of have a space to reduce that burden. That's what we're working towards. And yeah, I don't know. I just believe in estuary. I think it has a far larger um, potential impact than just the TLC. I think it could impact so many other places where these conversations and connecting on the personal level are difficult. And I hope we can keep doing it for a long time because it's the most meaningful work that I've ever done. I truly I truly believe that.
Yeah, I kind of do too, outside of like my family, probably. Um, all right. Well, I think that's a good time to stop, huh? We've
Okay.
gone an hour. I'm going to stop the recording
Okay.
and then we can talk. All
Yeah.
right. Bye.
Bye.